Daniel Bard was sentenced to 5 years in prison today. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is what I'm talking about. I was many victims of Daniel Bard and this financial crime, and I was one of two people who presented the bulk of the evidence, which would eventually get him charged, arrested, and would eventually lead to his conviction and his sentencing. I've talked about some of my adventures during this journey, be it the misogynoir that I experienced on the stand or the victim blaming, be it the complete disconnect of financial crime versus what the actual impact is more than money. And today, it kind of all hit home and connected the dots. Chris Ryan is one of the Crown prosecutors on this file, and he brought up today about how he was just at a conference, I think, that explicitly discussed domestic violence in the context of the new Bill C-16 that just passed, I'm imagining. And he specifically alluded to financial violence and said how this crime is by definition financial violence, and that we need to stop identifying financial crime as just, something that causes the loss of money without any other harm. I then had a conversation with Mr. Ryan where I told him that that's exactly what it was. It was coercive control. In this particular crime, we were subjected to financial violence. We were subjected to litigation violence. We were subjected to Darvo on the stand, victim blaming, straw manning, every single possible tactic that you could imagine in a domestic violence setting with coercive control you received in this financial fraud situation. And it's not because fraud is a part of domestic violence. It's because domestic violence is based on fraud. The fact is, we continuously put the onus on victims to choose better, without taking into consideration that they couldn't have chosen better because they were targeted by the victim. The victim, like a chameleon, took whatever shape that victim needed to see in order to trust and believe that that person was a good fit for them. And once they fully entrapped the person, once that victim was fully entrapped, engulfed, or sucked in the quicksand, that, my friends, is when you're trapped, and that's when the real consequences of the crimes occur. We then got to see Mr. Bard say that he apologizes for any harm that he has caused to anybody or everybody or whatever it was that he said. And I was asked by the press, how did that make me feel? What were my opinions on that apology? And I'm going to tell you right now exactly what I said to them. I feel complete indifference. Because apology is part of the performance, isn't it? They want a lesser sentence. They want to look good on paper. So they follow all of the rules put forward by the court. They cooperate entirely, as if an abuser can't cooperate. As if a cooperating abuser looks any better on paper. It's exhausting to continuously put burdens on victims to carry blame, abuse, shame, stigma, consistently, whether in financial crimes or in domestic violence. Why are we being held accountable to a level of performance that is impossible, while perpetrators are getting off with lesser sentences because they're near retirement or they are cooperating with, bail conditions or whatever it is that we want to say to make perpetrators just get away with anything at this point? The entire system is designed to punish victims over and over and over again. It's refusing to recognize the actual systemic failure. It's refusing to recognize that itself, this system itself, is fundamentally violating the human rights of its victims. I was asked if justice was served today. Justice cannot be served in this system. It can't. Justice is impossible in this system. Did he get a fair sentence? Yeah, sure. He's going to do less time in prison than I did dealing with the fraud. But does it matter? No, not really. Because the measure of deciding whether or not it's a fair or just outcome or punishment assumes that the punishment is just in its base form to begin with. It's not. Because the victims continue to carry the stigma. They continue to carry the burden. They continue to carry the labels. And yet somehow they're expected to be ashamed of being the victims. Why does being called a victim hold such negative connotation? I don't know. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of being a victim of a financial crime that I was the whistleblower on. I'm not ashamed of being a victim of a systemic failure of a certain minister and department that is supposed to protect families and children and continues to fail and focus on cover-up consistently over and over and over, as well documented by the entire province, over and over and over. And I'm not ashamed of being a victim of domestic violence. Because the fact is I couldn't have picked better. Because you can't decide on a good result, a good outcome. You can't be responsible for a decision that is based on lies that you were given. So just like Daniel Bard is convicted of fraud, perpetrators of domestic violence need proper convictions and proper sentencing. Because the fact is, most convicted only get about 6 months on average to 2 years tops. And that includes the ones that commit violence, physical violence or actual violence, which seems to be the only focus of everyone in this conversation. That's the average for first-time offenders. And first-time offenders are never first-time offenders. It's just the first time that one person actually went far enough to report and push for a conviction, because other women report prior to them. They just get ignored and gaslit by a police system dominated by men who don't even know the criminal code, because it's not part of their job description or their performance reviews to know the criminal codes. So these people decide what is worth investigating or not when they don't even know the criminal laws. And who's left to bear the shame? Every time the victims. The mothers and the children of the abusive fathers. And I don't mean the mother of the father, I mean the spouse. Mothers are often complicit. Definitely active participants in my case. Anyway. We have a problem. Systemically here. And if you think that victims simply just need to do better in their picking, then you're the problem. You're the entire problem. Do you feel the discomfort yet? And more importantly, what are you going to do about it?